Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another live stream on the History Vibe podcast. And today I'm joined by Dr. John Andrew Morrow and Dr. Bilal Muhammad. And today's discussion will be based on their book titled W.D. Fard, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam. The link to purchase the book will be in the description below and in the pinned comment as well. That being said, John and Bilal, thank you both for joining me today.
Well, John, thank you so much. And just a correction, I'm not a doctor, but I'll take the compliment nonetheless.
Okay. So my first question is, who is Master Fard Muhammad?
Well, that's quite the question. He was a mystery man, a man of over 60 aliases, a man who was variably called a professor, a prophet, the supreme being, a con man, an agent, a missionary, the Messiah, the Mahdi, God in person, and mentally ill. He was a 5'6", 140-pound, dapper dresser, light-skinned man with a soft accented voice. He was a man from the East. He was a non-black man who came to Black Bottom, Detroit in 1930 to found the most famous black nationalist religion in the world. And he came at the height of the Great Depression, at the height of the Jim Crow era, at the height of the Great Migration, at the height of the popularity of secret societies like the Freemasons. And he taught a very desperate and poor and undereducated people a knowledge of self. And he was a man whose teachings would go on to inspire people like Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Louis Farrakhan. He taught a very syncretic form of Islam that combined elements of the Moorish Science Temple, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Theosophical Society, pop history, pop science. And he converted between 8 and 24,000 people in just a couple of years. He was active for 4 years. The bulk of his activity was between 1930 and 1932. And he started a temple. He started an elementary school called the University of Islam. And he disappeared without a trace in 1934. He became what I'm calling the biggest missing person case in modern history. And the FBI spent millions of dollars looking for him, and they could not find his origins nor where he went. And so it's the job of scholars like myself and Dr. Morrow to try to put some of the pieces together.
Did he believe that he is Allah incarnate?
Did W.D. Fard, the founder of the Nation of Islam, believe that he was God? Well, if he was God, obviously he believed he was God. Can you imagine God questioning his own divinity? Yeah, where did I come from? What is the meaning of my existence? Am I a good guy, a good God? If W.D. Fard was a human being, however, who genuinely believed he was God, it's time for the straitjacket, the paddy wagon, and the padded cell, or just a daily dose of antipsychotics, or maybe bipolar meds. If he was just pretending to be God, well, he wasn't the first. Hundreds upon hundreds of human beings from ancient times to the present have claimed to be God. Many of the early followers of W.D. Fard, including Elijah Muhammad, John Muhammad, and Bernstein Sharif Muhammad, asserted that he was a prophet, the Messiah, the Savior, the Deliverer, the Son of God, the Mahdi, God, Jehovah, Allah, the Supreme Being, the Maker of the universe, the Creator, and the omnipotent and omniscient Lord of the worlds. Many witnesses heard W.D. Fard say publicly that he was Jesus. I am your Jesus. I am here, he said in a church before getting his teeth knocked out. According to early believers, he gave an audacious speech in which he proclaimed that I am God himself. Far from a fabrication of Elijah Muhammad, W.D. Fard's claims of divinity were confirmed in newspaper reports from 1932. When asked to identify himself, he calmly and confidently informed the Detroit Police Department that he was the Supreme Being. Dr. Clark, the medical examiner who treated Fard upon his arrest, reported that W.D. Fard was, and I quote, suffering from delusions that he is a divinity. To be fair, Some of the followers of W.D. Farad never heard him say such things. Those factions, however, were short-lived. However, documents dating from 1934, 1933, 1932, 1931, and 1930 demonstrate that some people, at least, considered W.D. Farad to be divine while he was among them. He didn't object to his secretary, Bernstein Sharif Muhammad, referring to him as Jesus, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and the great I am. As she stated quite clearly, we walked and talked with God. If W.D. Farad claimed to be God, where could such an idea come from? Theologically extreme Shiite Islam? Radical forms of Sufism? But how much of this would he have brought to America as an 18-year-old Indo-Pakistani immigrant? So perhaps these ideas came from Christianity, Rastafarianism, Theosophy, the I Am movement, Freemasonry, the Shriners, the Illuminati, the Moorish Science Temple of Islam, or maybe just himself. All of these possible influences are explored in Finding W.D. Farad, Unveiling the Identity of the Founder of the Nation of Islam, in our most recent book, W.D. Farad, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam. Viewers can also check out the John Andrew Morrow podcast.
Why did he form the Nation of Islam?
I could take this. So, well, I mean, we don't know for sure. So 1932 newspapers were saying that it was a racket and that he was a con man, doing it for the money. But me and Dr. Morrow are not as convinced of this conclusion because, firstly, why target people that have no money? And there's also ample evidence that he was sharing some of the revenue that was being generated from the Nation of Islam. So there was a poor fund, which was supporting people that were off of welfare. A lot of people were kicked off of welfare because of their association with the group. They, of course, had the Allah Temple of Islam in Detroit on Hastings Street. They had a school, which was the University of Islam. He gave people presents and suits. And, well, his followers did buy him a car at one point. But is that enough to start this kind of risky, dangerous business? So, this is something that got him arrested multiple times, thrown out of the city of Detroit. So I'm not convinced of this allegation. And in general, it's very hard to determine someone's intentions because if I gave like a modern example, say someone like President Biden, what are his intentions in becoming president? Is it money? Is it this? Even for someone that's alive today, who we can all see and see videos of, it's very hard to determine intentions, let alone for someone like W.D. Farad, who is clouded in mystery. One of the theories is that he was an agent of Imperial Japan. Possibly. Japan was trying to agitate racial tensions in the United States at that time. And this was before Pearl Harbor. He was an associate of a man named Major Takahashi, who claimed to be a major in the Japanese military. But they were kind of frenemies, more so than allies. I mean, they were competing over the same flock. They had rivaling organizations. So further study needs to be done in Japan. Some said that he was an Ahmadiyya missionary. The Ahmadiyya are an offshoot of Islam currently in modern day Pakistan. He did use an Ahmadiyya translation of the Quran, which was the Maulana Muhammad Ali translation. But this was also the first translation done in English by a Muslim author. So that could be the more obvious explanation as to why he was using that one. And his teachings bear no resemblance to the Ahmadiyya movement. This theory that Farad was this Ahmadi missionary named Muhammad Abdullah, which would be claimed later, the man that died in 1993. This has been routinely debunked by Dr. Morrow, by Carl Evans. Our new book, of course, reinforces that debunking of that theory, I should say. Was he mentally ill? That's what the prison doctor in 1932 said, that he was suffering delusions that he was a divinity. And, some of his symptoms do line up with bipolar 1, which wouldn't be discovered until the 1980s. But then some don't. And I think that some of his delusions of grandeur can actually be traced back to the New Thought movement, late 19th, early 20th century, where, if one with positive thinking believes that they are God, that they're able to do, they're able to transform their lives and such. So you can look into that. It's called a New Thought movement. What we know is that he was an immigrant. It's possible that he was radicalized by his treatment in America. He was always being treated as a foreigner. The newspapers were calling him a Turk, a Greek. They were calling him his papers, I think World War I draft, or maybe it was his marriage papers, I forget. But one of them said that he was a Spaniard. He was being called an African American, a Syrian, a New Zealander. He never attained citizenship. He was taken to court multiple times, including by exes who were white, like Laura Swanson. So yeah, and he served time, in San Quentin in 1926 till May 1929. And San Quentin was notorious. So it's possible that he was this kind of failed, American dream experiment. But again, people are complicated. It's multifactorial, and it's hard to reduce people to one intention or the other.
What were his intentions?
Well, it's impossible to know the intentions of others. We can only judge people based on their words and actions. We can only speculate. Was he a loving, compassionate, and socially committed deity? Was he a mystic or a madman? Was he a criminal, a con man, and a scam artist who was running a racket? Was he a missionary from a Muslim nation or a movement? Did he go rogue? Was he a spy or an intelligence operative? Did he work for US intelligence to promote segregation? Did he work for the Japanese to stir up the colored people and destroy America from within? We don't know, and that is why he is so fascinating and intriguing. I believe, or I want to believe, that W.D. Farad was deeply and profoundly concerned about Black people and the conditions in which they lived. He taught them how to bathe, how to dress, how to eat, how to read, how to write, how to do math, and how to think. He taught them geography, history, sociology, ethics, morality, personal responsibility, solidarity, politics, discipline, personal finance, philosophy, and theology. He taught them knowledge of themselves. He gave them pride. He built up a broken people. As a result of his teachings, destitute lower class Blacks soon moved into the middle classes. His influence was truly transformative. It took the Prophet Muhammad 23 years to build the Muslim community. It took W.D. Farad 3 to 4 years to build the Nation of Islam. His teachings were therapeutic. They were medicine. He was, in my estimation, one of the most important figures in the history of Islam in America and one of the most impactful figures in African American history. His teachings were no crazier than those shared by other religions. It would truly break my heart if it was confirmed that he was a fraud and a scam artist who exploited Black people, or an intelligence operative who was manipulating them for political reasons.
What did he teach his followers besides claiming to be Allah?
Well, he taught that there was no life after death. He taught that heaven and hell were actually two conditions of life here on Earth. If you were wealthy, if you had knowledge, especially knowledge of self, if you knew your history, if you knew your true names, and if you lived, good quality life, then that's heaven, basically. And of course, ignorance, that would be hell. He taught like a strict diet. It was a 1 meal a day type of recommendation. It was mostly vegetarian. He taught that there was no mystery God, so no spook God. So Farad was basically like a naturalist. He taught that the Asiatic black man was God. He taught that the black man was the original man. So he taught that black people built not just civilization, but that they built everything, that they built creation, they built the universe. And he taught that whites were actually grafted out of black people. So he taught that there was a scientist named Yaqub 6,000 years ago who, over a 600-year process, was able to, on the island of Patmos in the Mediterranean, that he was able to mate lighter skinned blacks with lighter skinned blacks. And then over a 600-year period, he was able to create black, brown, yellow, red, and then white. So, I mean, there were, different colors, but the white was created by Yaqub. This is the teaching. And that the white would be this recessive, weaker opponent race, opponent of the original man. And this sounds very strange, but keep in mind that like this kind of race science, first of all, is very similar to the Theosophical Society, where you have the root races, right? The Lemurians, they came from Lemuria, and the Atlanteans came from Atlantis. You also had a group that preceded the Nazis called the Thule Society, which similarly taught that Aryans came from this mythical island of Thule at the very north extremity above Europe. And this is also the milieu of social Darwinism, of white supremacy. So in many cases, Farad just flipped white supremacy onto its head. This was a time when the earliest ancestors of the human race were being found in Africa. So, this was all going on in the background in the 20s and 30s. And for Master Farad, he believed that there would be this alliance between the darker races. So between black, brown, yellow, and red on one side against the white men, with America at its head. And so he believed that there would be this war of Armageddon between like the nations of Asia and Africa against America and Europe. It was a millenarian group. They believed that humanity was on the verge of the war of Armageddon, that the Asiatic black man actually built this mothership in Japan, and that mothership would bring about the destruction of America. So there's a sci-fi element, this kind of ufology element to the teachings. And of course, this mothership would relegate America to a lake of fire and brimstone and bring about the 1,000-year rule at the end of the world. So yeah, I mean, it was a teaching that was very attractive because of how contemporary it was. It was in line with naturalism. It was in line with the dominant secret societies. And, this is in the milieu of New Thought. And this is before the New Age. This was in that tender, also interwar period, and in a period where people were very poor and desperate.
Did he condone human sacrifice?
This book, like that we just wrote, doesn't deal much with the accusations of human sacrifice, but we are, spoiler alert, writing a follow-up book where I did recently complete a chapter on this subject. So first, some background. In 1932, there was a Nation of Islam member named Robert Harris. And Robert Harris did conduct a human sacrifice. So he took a fellow black man named James Smith, and he put him on an altar, and he brought 12 witnesses. And at exactly noontime, he stabbed him, attempting to stab him in the heart, and then he beat him to death. Now, Robert Harris was not a higher-ranking member of the group, but he was a member of the group, and he was arrested. He was sent to an asylum, and he remained there until his death in 1935. Now, Master Farad Muhammad was arrested as well, and the prison doctor said that Farad suffered delusions that he was a divinity. The police also raided the temple. They looked at all the Nation of Islam literature, which included Jehovah's Witness, apocalyptic literature. And the police couldn't implicate Farad in the murder. So they made a deal with him, and the deal was that Farad leaves Detroit, and he did. Of course, he would try to sneak back in April 1933. and he'd be thrown out in May 1933. But yeah, I mean, the media at the time, like the newspapers, they sensationalized this killing. They called it the voodoo murder in the papers. The Nation of Islam would be called the voodoo cult. There's no evidence that the Nation of Islam was practicing voodoo. The media was just saying voodoo because it was a black religion. So it was racist. And there was also an unsolved murder case in 1929 with Benny Evangelista, who, was practicing occult. He had occult practices, and he was murdered in a similar way. So there was this initial reaction that these murders might be linked. That was not determined. So did Farad teach human sacrifice? The Supreme Wisdom has a controversial 10th degree, which talks of bringing the heads of 4 devils. So, I mean, the exact meaning of that is debated. It's possible that Farad taught maybe some sort of initiation ritual that we see in the Shriners, for example, the Freemason Shriners. They had a mock trial kind of ritual, which had a mock death penalty. There's also violent imagery in Master Farad's teachings. So, the mothership would destroy the white man. Farad once told Elijah Muhammad, if you see a Christian and a Hindu walking together, kill the Hindu first. We would see similar kinds of, there'd be a similar human sacrifice in 1937, I believe, with Verlin McQueen. And this was a guy that was going to boil his family alive, but also with 12 witnesses and also at noon. The police did come and intervene, but it gives you the question of, like, was there some kind of a template with the 12 witnesses and the noon, and where did that template come from? So, I mean, yeah, you see like ideas kind of similar to killing, infidels in general. And we saw what happened with Malcolm X. We saw what later happened with Hamas Abdul Khalis. So, on one side, we don't have an extant human ritual sacrifice taught by Master Farad Muhammad, but we do have violent imagery in his teachings, and we have clues for a possible template for human sacrifice, the 12 witnesses and noon sacrifice thing. But, at the same time, no doubt that Robert Harris was insane. He was not some high-ranking member of the nation. And, of course, the nation was just not teaching voodoo, as the media would sensationalize.
Where was he born, and did he later end up in Japan?
According to Master Farad Muhammad, at least according to the yarn he spun between 1930 and 1934, he was born in Mecca, Arabia, and was the son of a black man and a white woman. That is Nation of Islam dogma. That's theology, not history. However, if we work backwards and trace W.D. Farad's steps, we find that he made many other claims regarding his place of birth. Prior to appearing in Detroit, Michigan in 1930, he had spent several months in Chicago, Illinois, under the alias William D. Fard or Farad. He claimed to have been born in Oregon to a Mexican father who was from Argentina and a mother who was from Oregon. Prior to coming to Chicago, W.D. Farad had spent approximately 3 years in San Quentin Prison in California. He was there from June 12, 1926 to May 27, 1929. He was paroled after serving less than half of his sentence. During that time, he claimed to be a white man, born in Portland, Oregon, to Zared and Beatrice Ford, both of whom were born in Hawaii. When he married Carmen Trevino, a Mexican woman of Spanish ancestry in 1924, W.D. Farad claimed to have been born in Madrid and listed his race as Spanish. Between 1919 and 1921, and maybe as late as 1923, W.D. Farad, then known as Wally Dodd Ford or Farad, lived in sin, so to speak, with Hazel Barton, a platinum blonde woman in Los Angeles, California. When his son Wallace Dodd Ford Jr., his name was later changed to Wallace Max Ford, was born in 1920, W.D. Farad claimed that he was a white New Zealander. In the same year, W.D. Farad told the census enumerator that he was a white man who was born in New Zealand. Before moving to California, W.D. Farad, then known as Fred Dodd, among other names, lived mostly in Oregon from 1907 to 1916, where he was known as Fred the Turk and Fred the Greek, as Bilal has mentioned. A popular figure who was regularly in the newspapers, he was identified variously as Greek or Turkish. In one newspaper report from 1912, he claimed that he was a naturalized American citizen who was born in New Zealand. However, on his naturalization petition from 1909, he swore that he was a white man who was born in Hong Kong, China, and was a subject of Alfonso XIII, the King of Spain. If we search through passenger manifests, we find that Wali Dodd Khan arrived in San Francisco, California in January of 1907. The ship that carried him was the Coptic. It left from Hong Kong with a refueling stop in Hawaii. Wali Dodd, who spoke English and had lots of money, stated that he was born in India in 1888 or 1889 and that he was a Mohammedan. That discovery is credited to Anton Beatty and Kevin Morris and W.D. Farad's first footsteps in America, the trail in Oregon. Where did he go after 1934? That's the mystery. The FBI received reports that W.D. Farad was in Chicago in May 1942, Japan in July 1942, the U.S. in 1950, New York in 1951, Mecca in 1953, and alive with whereabouts unknown as late as 1955. These are reports they received from their informants. None of them were verified and confirmed. The strongest evidence so far points to the fact that W.D. Farad moved to Cuernavaca, Mexico in 1934. As late as 1964, Elijah Muhammad was receiving correspondence from his professor in Mexico, a person the FBI was unable to track down. But that's all viewers will get here. If they want all the evidence, they're going to need to read W.D. Farad, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam. That's just a tease.
What are the theories on why he disappeared in 1934?
Well, according to Nation of Islam theology, the downfall of America and the devil white race was supposed to take place in 1914. Knock, knock, it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Prophets have been preaching the imminent end of times for thousands of years. The apocalypse is now, the end is near, the day of judgment is upon us. But the prophecies were never fulfilled. So they were delayed and delayed and delayed. The Christians have been waiting for 2,000 years for the return of Jesus. The Muslims have been waiting 1,500 years for the rise of the Mahdi. The Nation of Islam has been waiting 91 years for the return of the Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims, God incarnate. As far as Elijah Muhammad was concerned, W.D. Farad ascended into heaven or boarded the mothership and awaits the day of doom. That's the theological explanation. Now for the logical explanation. Number one, he died a natural death. Number two, he died an unnatural death. Number three, he assumed a new identity. 4, he moved out of the country. Or 5, he retired. He cashed in and checked out. This is the greatest missing persons case in history. This cold case needs to be solved. We have all the questions, but we don't have all the answers, but we want them. We have leads, and we are pursuing them. Detroit PD won't touch it. Why? Chicago PD won't touch it. Why? The FBI won't touch it. Why? The NSA won't touch it, and they told me why. Sharing any information on W.D. Farad would be, and I quote, and I have it in a letter, a threat to national security, as it would expose their intelligence gathering networks. What the fuck? What does that imply? Was W.D. Farad a spy? Is the Nation of Islam a psyop? Was W.D. Farad murdered? If so, by whom? And where's the body? Detroit PD was accused of killing Farad. Chicago PD was accused of killing Farad. Elijah Muhammad was accused of sacrificing Farad in a ritual. If they're all innocent, let's prove their innocence. If W.D. Farad was simply a con man who was running a racket and who retired to Mexico, why not help close the case? Is there a supernatural explanation to all of this? Should I ask the positively gorgeous Ana Paulina Luna, the chair of the House Oversight Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets, to address the occultation of W.D. Farad and the existence of the mothership in the UAP hearings? Maybe I should. If only she were single. That's all I have for today, so maybe we can end on that sweet note.
I do have one more question I'd like to throw in here to both of you before we close. Why did he keep changing his ethnicity and where he was born so many times?
Bilal?
Covering his tracks. I mean, this is, if it is proven that he was a foreign agent, then it's possible that he was covering his tracks from the beginning, since his arrival. So he arrives in the United States. It was discovered by Beatty and Morris in 1907. And basically since then, he was known by various aliases. So Fred the Turk, Fred the Greek, Fred Dodd, Wally Dad Khan, Billy Dad Khan, Wallace D. Ford, Wallace D. Farad, Professor Ford, etc. There are more aliases that we haven't uncovered yet. It was clear that, especially after 1932, he would have been living a double life of some sort. So that's one possibility. We do discover that rather Dr. Morrow in our new book discovered that there was an Illuminati code that he had shared in the newspapers in what year was that again, Dr. Morrow? Was it 1916 or 17 or something? But anyway, it's one of the chapters of the book, and he may have just been involved in secret societies. He was not a citizen of the United States, so he may have been covering his tracks for that reason, in order to hide his status in the country. He was involved in these, I guess, revolutionary movements, the Nation of Islam being one of them. He may have been involved in Marcus Garvey's UNIA in the 1920s. He was known as a street corner politician in the 1920s. So, he may have been involved in the Wobblies, which was a kind of quasi-socialist group in the early 1920s, was his involvement. So all of this being said, there are a myriad of reasons as to why he was changing his aliases. And I mean, I suppose he was someone that really valued his privacy as well. There are very few surviving pictures of Master Farad Muhammad. There is no surviving video or audio of him. So yeah, he was a man of many faces and many identities, a hero with 1,000 faces.
So over 80 aliases, 80. We're up to 80 now. And he wasn't just changing his name. He was changing his race, his ethnicity, the year of his birth, the place of his birth, a chameleon, a shapeshifter from the beginning.
There's a story. Have you guys heard of Korla Pandit? So there was Korla Pandit. Okay, so there was this musician in the 1940s who was just an African American, but he was masquerading that he was an Indian, that he was a son of an Indian Brahmin and a French opera singer. And he would wear a turban, and he would go on television playing, Oriental music, exotic kind of music. So I think that a lot of this is also people would do this in order to hide their identity in many cases because there was racism against whatever their actual original ethnicity was. So if Farad was Indian, well, there was a lot of anti-Indian hatred, but also like policies that were designed to prevent Indians from coming and gaining citizenship in the United States. With Arabs, he did claim to be from Mecca. It was more of a mixed bag. In some cases, the courts were considering Arabs to be white. In some cases, they were considering them to not be white. But I mean, it looks like, again, based on our study, that Master Farad was from the Indian subcontinent, in which case it's kind of understandable that he'd want to hide that at that time in history.
And just remind everybody, a link to purchase the book will be in the description below and the pinned comment. That being said, Dr. John Andrew Morrow and Bilal Muhammad, thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. And I hope, and if it is an expensive book, so if you can't afford it, please request that your library can acquire it so that you can benefit yourself and others.
Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron, and or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during your live stream. Thank you.